So let's dive into the next definition, and that's bullnose, or bullnose edge. See edge, bullnose. So a bullnose is a way that you treat the edge of a door, and bullnosed edge treatments are done generally because you have a double acting door. So you've got a door that's not only going to swing positive 90 degree, but negative 90 degree as well. And if my fist represents the edge of a door, let's assume that this is either, a 0 degree or it's a 3 degree, let's say, bevel on a door. Well, that doesn't work when the door's got to swing out and then back closed. And it's because those hard outside corners are going to hit the jamb, unless you have an unusually greater gap between the cased opening frame and the door itself. So relieving or bullnosing the edge of the door is how you maintain a tight margin between the door in those double acting applications. So the term bullnose is something that I always think about when it comes to a radius edge. And let's talk about the difference of those two, and then we'll move further into the definition of bullnose. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. And I remember many, many years ago, a customer, and that's really a great source of learning about the industry, is from someone who knows more than you. Sometimes they're a peer in the industry, or sometimes they're a customer. Sometimes they're tech support or customer service at the manufacturer or vendor, but a lot of times it is the customer. I have been taught very clear, simple, what ultimately became a very obvious lesson after I had it just said to me plainly. I had a customer one time, I was using the term radius and bullnose, I think incorrectly, interchangeably, and the customer corrected me, and he says, here's how I always think of the difference. Think of the top row of tile in your bathroom. Well, that's just radiused. It's not bullnosed. So always remember, top of it's just radiused over. And that's how I think of it. So the reason I bring up radius is because it's like half of a bullnose, which is what I call it. So you're only going to take one side of the door and put the radius on it. But if you radius both sides, now you're bullnosing it. I don't know if the term bullnose has anything to do with the shape of a bull's nose. Don't really know. But you will radius doors when you want to have a door hung on center hung pivots, and you need to be able to pull that door open. You're going to radius the inside edge on the latching side of the door, on the push face of the latching side, and then on the pull face of the pivot side, you will radius that. And that's how you break the edge, so that you can close the door without that outside hard corner hitting the jamb and still maintaining a tight margin between the cased opening frame and the jamb. And I'm going to show you, I'll dig up a video where I kind of show how a bullnose condition works. So why don't we, well, before we move on, you'll see bullnose doors in wood, very commonly wood, in aluminum storefront, very commonly there. You'll even see them in hollow metal doors. Now they don't, every time that I've encountered a bullnose door, it's a door that's been undersized, and then they take a piece of metal that's been formed, and then they apply that, weld it to the edge of the door, giving it a bullnosed type of look. I can't think of, I don't know if fiberglass doors are done that way, or aluminum or bronze doors, but wood doors, absolutely. Aluminum storefront, you're going to see those. If you see a wood door and it's double acting, it's very likely bullnosed. If you see aluminum storefront and the door is inset into the center of the frame and it's a cased opening frame, look at the strike side of the inactive door, or just look at the latch side of the single door, and it may very likely be bullnosed. And obviously when you bullnose the edge of a door, you've got to think about, what hardware am I attaching to it? So in aluminum storefront, Adams Wright, for instance, they specifically make radiused face plates for their locks because those doors are so common. Okay, let's switch to the screen view and let's look at the SDI definition of bullnose. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. let's move on to the rest of the video. Okay, here is bullnose. Bullnose. C edge, comma bullnose. All right, well, let's do that. Let's go to edge. Okay, edge profile. We're in the E's, so it's going to be under edge and edge profile. Okay, this is really great. This actually, these 4 ways to treat the edge of a door are the ways that I use also to illustrate how the doors are different when I'm discussing backset. So, bullnosed, the vertical door edge simulates a 2 1/8 inch radius. Well, I didn't know that dimension, 2 1/8 inch. I didn't know that that was the hard-coded dimension for that. So what they're talking about there is this. Let's get a little fancy. So I've pulled up AutoCAD Lite. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to simply draw a random line. Great. Let's draw a different random line. Let's draw a line that's 1.75 in length. So that line is 1 3/4. Yeah, 1.75 is the length right here. Okay, so let's do this. The center of that is here. I can see that. So what we're going to do is let's draw a circle. See if draw a circle. Then we're going to give it a radius of, you know what, I forgot what that was. Okay, 2 1/8 inch radius. Okay, so 2.125. Awesome. So here's a radius. So definitely more elegant ways to do this, but that's what we're looking at. That would be the radius on this if this was a door. So that's what the edge of your door is going to look like. Now, why 2 1/8? Well, 2 1/8 is probably because it's very common for most hardware applications, and the example I would use for that would be a typical Bomber 7800 series horizontal spring pivot. Just the first thing that came to mind. Let's look at the template and see what Bomber calls out for that radius. So they want an 1.5 inch radius on this. So the bottom line is your larger radius of 2 1/8 would actually not be correct for this because it's not a tight enough, small enough circle is what I'm trying to say. Let's do this. 1.5 inch is what they called the radius to be. Okay, superimpose that in the same intersection points. The blue highlighted line is our 1.5 inch radius. Well, the 2 1/8, that is our 2 1/8. So you can see that the 1.5 inch is not, you know, the overall width of the door is going to be greater, is the bottom line. So whether or not a 2 1/8 inch radius is correct based on the SDI definition, you'll need to determine that. But this would be pretty important. And also, before you went to your door manufacturer and told them what radius, you know, you might want to make sure they can give you the radius per the template. I wouldn't want to have doors made and you are putting a radius on here that's outside of what the manufacturer calls for. That could expose you to a problem. Now, I have here a video where we show the importance of radius. Right, so what we have here is let's copy. The key part here is that nowhere does the door get any closer than this margin. Let's put it at, if you had a square edge door, you're going to get a lot closer to hitting that. 5. You should be, you know, I'm sure that you can visualize that. I don't think this video has a square edge door for comparison's sake. Let's take our, but you can see here that you're not, you don't encroach too far, but if you had a square edge door, you're going to hit, and that's why you radius the material. Otherwise, you increase the gap there. So you wouldn't actually need a radius at all, you know, but that's also dependent on your door thickness. So as the door gets thicker, you have to think about the radius differently, and AutoCAD is a really, or, you know, AutoCAD Lite or whatever software, Libra, Draw can do it, CAD-CAM software can do it, like Vectrix, VCarve. You can rotate and put dimensions in that. So it's just a matter of how you go about figuring out what is needed. But a bullnose door is going to be used for that type of circumstance. So as I said, I didn't know that that was the case. You want to make sure that you're okay with that being the case. But it is indeed for those instances where you have double acting types of doors, is just simply the bottom line, where you've got to rotate around and keep that margin tight. Again, it affects your hardware. You've got to think about how the hardware is affected. And then I had mentioned backset when I was using these in terms of backset. It is important to note that your backset is the distance from the edge of the door to the center of something, the hole. Here's a square edge door. Backset is the distance from the edge of the door to where you're going to drill for that 2 1/8 inch lock prep. 2 3/8, 2 3/4, 5 inch, 3 3/4, whatever it is. In all other instances, it's the same. It's always the edge of the door to the center of your prep or your reinforcement. Backset can also be referred to as when you are going to indicate to the manufacturer where you want the reinforcement located, the steel welded in for you to drill and tap to for hardware. That's also a backset. But it's important to note that the definition of backset is from the center of the thickness of the door. Well, that's okay on a square edge door, but if you've got a beveled edge door, you got to know it's here and not here, or here and not here. Same with the bullnose, it's here. That's really important because you're going to get into hardware that is really important to calculate the accurate backset. So if we've got an Adams Wright MS 1850, the available backsets, 7/8, 31/30 seconds. Those two dimensions are extremely close to each other. 0.875 and then 0.97 basically. So, like 3/32 of an inch away from each other. And then you've got 1 1/8, 1.5 inches. Okay, so the bottom line is you really have to know where backset is measured from on a radiused edge door, because on this MS 1850S, they do make radiused faceplates. So the moral of the story is you do have to know where radius comes into play, because lots of your hardware are going to be required. Lots of your hardware are going to need, the right backset. Now let's take a look back at the glossary. What's our next definition in line? Because I think we've handled bullnose. I hope we have. If we haven't, we'll talk about that. Bullnose trim. Okay, well, it's not going to be too much of a deviation, but before we wrap this up, a lot of the questions I get is how to put a bullnose on a door. Let's actually talk about that. So how to put a bullnose on a door, I use a roundover bit. And I am going to refer us to the Amana catalog. Amana makes lots of tools. I don't have a strong opinion about them being good, bad, or otherwise. I own and use their tools, and I have nothing negative to say. I've also been told by other people that they don't prefer their tools at all. My personal opinion is that they're not awful. So there's a product catalog that we have, and I want to show you a roundover bit. So if we're going to search for a roundover bit here, and this is obviously for wood doors. Well, let's just say for wood doors. Let's not talk about anything exotic. So here's a roundover bit, or a roundover application. It's not the one I'm thinking of. A roundover bit will look like this. The one I'm thinking of has a bearing on it. Oh, this is neat. There's a great roundover bit right there. That would give you, a roundover. Not for our door work. Okay. So the roundover type that I want to show you is this. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, it's not roundover. It's rounding. Corner rounding with ball bearing guide. So I own a 49524, which is this one right here. 49524. That's 1.5 inch B dimension. But I want the R dimension. What's R? 1.25 inches. So I've got 1.25 inch roundover bit here on my desk. And yeah, 1.5 inches. So I should get my hands on that bigger roundover bit so that I can actually do 1.5 inch radius, the 49526. That would give me this. So that's really going to give me when I insert that very large tool into the bottom of the router, I'm going to want that bearing bit to be right in the center of the thickness of the door so that I'm getting myself a proper round over, so that I can round over the door and then flip it over and do the other side of the door. So what we'll do is let's switch back to the screen, the camera view. I'll show you the bit, and we'll wrap up this video. Let's do that now. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. Okay, so here's that 1.25" radius bit, and I use this type of bit for literally doing the round over on a wood door when I'm prepping for that 7811. So this is the Steel Door Institute, so they're talking about a bullnose on a steel door. I'm not sure how many of those you've seen, but I've been around for more than 30 years and I've seen one or two. So that's kind of what you're going to emulate when you're putting a bullnose or a radius onto a door. And for the reasons that we've already said why you would end up doing that. So again, the next video is going to be edge, basically the applied trim that will go onto the door, which we'll take a look and see if we can find documentation from a manufacturer's catalog in terms of how they do a bullnose on a door, and maybe I will come up with something from a manufacturer for bullnose trim. So let's move on to bullnose trim. Thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.